The dining room erupted in a storm of disbelief, my father's face draining of color as the truth I'd hidden for years ignited like a flare in the dark. I stood tall, my voice a blade cutting through the facade of our perfect family, knowing this moment would rewrite our history forever. My name is Nora Kellan, and for 28 years, I was the shadow in a house ablaze with my brother's glory, invisible to the man who should have cherished me most. My father, Gregory Kellan, was not a man of loud fury. His weapon was silence, a cold, deliberate dismissal that wounded deeper than any shout. At 10, I brought home a hand-drawn map of our town, each street meticulously traced for a school project. He glanced at it, muttered, "Fine," and turned to my brother, Owen, to praise his barely passed history quiz. "That's my boy," he'd say, his voice warm with a pride I never felt. I was the afterthought, my efforts dissolving into the radiance of my brother's triumphs. At 14, I spent weeks carving a wooden birdhouse for Father's Day, sanding each edge until it gleamed. I presented it to him after supper, my heart pounding with fragile hope. He nodded, said, "Thanks," and set it aside to admire the store-bought fishing rod my brother, Finn, had given him. Finn's gift sparked a hearty laugh and a slap on the back, while my birdhouse gathered dust in the garage. That moment etched a truth into my soul: I would never be enough. Owen and Finn were the pillars of our family's legacy. Owen, the eldest, had a golden tongue, charming teachers and neighbors with effortless charisma. Gregory treated him like a partner, sharing late-night talks and hunting trips I was never invited to. Finn, the younger, was the musician, his guitar solos filling the house with melodies that earned standing ovations. Gregory attended every recital, his cheers echoing through the auditorium, while my quiet achievements, Math Olympiad medals, short story awards, earned a distracted, "That's nice, Nora." My mother, Sylvia, tried to mend the hurt. She'd wrap me in her arms and whisper, "You're a treasure, my darling." But her words couldn't dismantle the hierarchy that governed our home. If Owen wanted the last pancake, it was his. If Finn needed money for new strings, Gregory handed it over without question. When I asked for a new notebook for my stories, Gregory sighed, "Why waste money? You'll quit soon." His words were a knife, slicing through my dreams. I learned to shrink, to speak only when necessary, to avoid stealing the spotlight from my brothers. But beneath my silence, a spark was igniting, not just pain, but a fierce determination. I stopped chasing Gregory's approval and started forging a path for myself, one he couldn't dismiss. I vowed that one day, he'd see me not as the overlooked daughter, but as a force he couldn't ignore. Our family gatherings were a polished charade, all smiles and clinking glasses, like a scene from a small-town postcard. But I knew the truth. I was the extra in my brother's starring roles. Owen could talk his way out of a speeding ticket, and Gregory would call him a born leader. Finn's sold-out gigs prompted backyard barbecues, with Gregory grilling burgers and inviting the neighbors. My publication in a regional literary journal, a fleeting, "That's good," buried under talk of Owen's latest sales pitch. I pushed myself harder, not for Gregory's praise, but to prove my worth to myself. I took evening classes, worked part-time at a library, and saved every cent for supplies. I won scholarships, earned quiet accolades, and built a portfolio that caught the eye of literary agents. But at home, my successes were invisible. Gregory would boast about Finn's music festivals or Owen's business deals, while my book deal was met with a nod and a quick subject change. I didn't hate my brothers. They weren't cruel, they simply basked in the light Gregory shone on them. The fault was his, with his relentless favoritism that crushed me without a thought. I tried to let it go, to focus on my path, but a part of me still longed for his pride, for a single, "I'm proud of you, Nora," spoken from the heart. That moment never came, but another did, one that would rewrite our family's narrative. It was the culmination of years of sacrifice. Late nights writing until my fingers cramped, weekends spent refining manuscripts, and countless rejections that tested my resolve. I had created a digital publishing platform, a revolutionary tool connecting writers with readers and publishers worldwide. It wasn't just a business. It was my heart poured onto a screen, a testament to every moment I'd fought to be seen. The launch event was held in a chic Portland loft, packed with editors, tech investors, and book influencers. I took the stage, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach, and shared my vision. The room was captivated, their applause washing over me like a tide. For the first time, I felt truly visible. The praise kept coming. Handshakes from publishers, emails from literary festivals, even a feature in a national book magazine. I allowed myself a moment of pride, believing I'd built something undeniable. But that hope was short-lived. At the family's annual harvest feast, the air was thick with the usual boasts. Owen shared news of his new startup, Finn bragged about a record deal, and Gregory beamed, soaking in their glory. I waited for my moment, my heart racing with anticipation. When the conversation turned to achievements, I spoke up. I launched my platform last month, I said, my voice clear. It's already connecting writers with millions of readers. Gregory barely looked up from his plate. That's nice, Nora, he said, waving a hand as if dismissing a triviality. Owen, tell us about that investor meeting. The dismissal was a blow, echoing every time my efforts had been brushed aside. My brothers exchanged awkward glances, but no one challenged him. The room moved on, leaving me stranded in my triumph. That night, something inside me broke, not with anger, but with clarity. I realized Gregory would never see me, no matter how high I climbed. The weight of his neglect, the years of being sidelined, crystallized into a single truth. I didn't need his approval. I needed to free myself from his shadow. I stopped attending family events, moved to a small apartment in Seattle, and threw myself into my work. My platform became my lifeline, a world where my voice mattered. The early days were grueling. I lived on instant noodles, worked freelance editing jobs to pay the rent, and cried myself to sleep some nights, doubting my strength. But every setback fueled my determination. I taught myself coding, pitched to skeptical publishers, and built a network from scratch. Social media showed Owen at tech conferences with Gregory's proud arm around him, or Finn with another award, captioned, Kellan Pride. The sting was there, but I didn't let it stop me. I closed the app and kept working. My platform grew quietly but steadily. A venture capitalist saw its potential and invested, allowing me to hire a team of dreamers like me. People who knew what it felt like to be underestimated. Together, we built something extraordinary. I didn't flaunt my success, didn't send family updates or show up to gloat. I let them think I was still the quiet girl in the corner, biding my time. Inside, I was transforming. I stood taller, spoke with conviction, and made choices without hesitation. I bought a sleek silver convertible with my own money, leased a loft office with city views, and did it all without needing anyone's praise. I wasn't just building a career. I was building a life that was mine alone. The first time I caught my reflection and didn't see the overlooked daughter, but a woman who'd fought for her place, I knew I'd won. 2 years passed without a visit home. The silence was mutual. No calls, no texts, just a void where family should have been. But I decided to return for the annual harvest feast, a tradition Gregory revered. I sent a curt, "I'll be there," to the group chat, met with emojis and indifference. The night before, I stood in a dealership, signing for a midnight blue sports car under a new legal name I'd adopted for my business. None of them knew who I'd become. In my bag was a slim silver envelope, its contents a secret that would shift the ground beneath us. I arrived at the house, the car's engine growling as I parked. The family was on the porch, laughing over drinks, Gregory at the center like a king. His eyes met mine, surprise flickering before settling into a condescending smile. "Well, look who's here," he said. The table turned, their stares a mix of curiosity and judgment. Dinner was the same old script. Owen's new penthouse, Finn's latest tour, Gregory's nods of approval. Then he looked at me, his smirk sharp. "And then there's the dreamer," he said, gesturing my way. "Still scribbling those stories, Nora?" The table erupted in laughter, Owen choking on his drink, Finn pounding the table. I stayed calm, my hands steady, waiting for the moment I'd planned. I stood, the room falling silent. "I brought you a gift, Dad," I said, pulling the envelope from my bag. I placed it before him, my gaze unflinching. He frowned, tearing it open with a theatrical flourish. His eyes scanned the page, and his face changed. Confusion, then shock, then a dawning horror. "What is this?" he demanded, voice rising. "Read it," I said, my tone even. "You'll understand." The document was simple. My company had acquired the publishing house Gregory had served for decades. His role, his legacy, now answered to me. I turned, walked to the car, and drove away as his shout echoed behind me. A sound not of anger, but of fear. Back at the house, chaos unfolded. Gregory clutched the paper, his hands trembling as Owen and Finn crowded around. "What's going on?" Owen asked, his voice small. Finn peered at the document, his bravado gone. "Is this real?" Gregory's voice was a whisper. "She owns it. The company, my position, everything." The realization hit like a tidal wave. Owen's face reddened. How could she? We're the ones who mattered. Finn stammered, "But how did she do this?" Gregory's eyes were distant, his empire crumbling. "She's not who we thought," he muttered. "She's more." The Kellan house was a fortress of tradition, its oak-paneled walls and stained glass windows a testament to Gregory's success as a publishing magnate. The dining room, with its long walnut table and silver candelabras, was where I'd learned to measure my worth against my brother's triumphs. Gregory sat at the head, his presence commanding, his approval a currency I could never earn. Owen and Finn, flanking him like loyal heirs, soaked up his pride, while I lingered at the table's edge, a silent spectator. Growing up, I'd tried everything to win Gregory's attention. At 8, I memorized Shakespeare to recite at dinner, hoping he'd notice my intellect. He'd nod, then ask Owen about his debate team. At 16, I wrote a short story that won a local contest, thinking a certificate might catch his eye. I placed it on his desk, but Gregory was at Finn's concert, cheering as if his son had conquered Carnegie Hall. My certificate sat untouched, a relic of my longing. Sylvia, my mother, was my only ally, though her efforts were limited by Gregory's dominance. She'd slip me extra dessert or leave encouraging notes in my journal, but she couldn't change the family's dynamics. "You're enough," she'd say, her eyes pleading with me to believe it. But how could I, when Gregory's indifference was a constant reminder of my place? The hierarchy wasn't subtle. Owen's charm made him Gregory's favorite, their bond sealed with shared strategies and weekend retreats. Finn's musical talent earned him Gregory's loudest cheers, his performances celebrated with fanfare. I was the odd one out, my love for writing and technology dismissed as hobbies that wouldn't lead anywhere. "You need a real plan," Gregory would say, his tone implying I was wasting my potential. But I refused to let his words define me. In high school, I started writing in secret, filling notebooks with stories and essays that gave voice to my pain. I submitted to local contests, winning small prizes that I hid from Gregory, knowing he'd scoff. By college, I was publishing in literary journals, my work earning praise from strangers who saw what my father couldn't. Each acceptance was a brick in the foundation of my self-worth, built without his approval. My platform was born from that foundation. I saw a gap in the publishing world, a lack of connection between emerging writers and overwhelmed publishers. I taught myself coding, spending nights hunched over my laptop, fueled by coffee and determination. I built a prototype, a digital bridge that streamlined submissions and connected writers with readers. It was rough at first, but I kept refining it, driven by a vision of a world where talent, not connections, mattered. The launch was a gamble. I rented a venue with my savings, sent invites to every contact I'd made, and prayed someone would show up. They did. Hundreds of them, from indie publishers to tech investors curious about my idea. Standing on that stage, I felt a power I'd never known. My voice, once silenced at home, filled the room, and the applause that followed was mine alone. For the first time, I wasn't in anyone's shadow. The platform took off faster than I dreamed. Writers flocked to it, publishers praised its efficiency, and investors saw its potential. A seed round gave me the capital to hire a team, and we expanded, adding features like AI-driven analytics and reader engagement tools. The literary world buzzed with our name, but at home, my family remained oblivious. Gregory didn't ask about my work, and I didn't tell him. I wanted my success to speak for itself, to hit him like a thunderbolt when he least expected it. The harvest feast was the perfect stage. I'd been absent for 2 years, my life a mystery to my family. They didn't know about the platform's success, the awards, the investors, or the new name I'd taken to protect my privacy. I arrived in the sports car, its sleek design a symbol of my independence. The envelope in my bag held the key to my plan, a legal document confirming my company's acquisition of Gregory's publishing house. Dinner unfolded as always, with Owen and Finn dominating the conversation. Gregory's laughter filled the room, his pride in his sons palpable. When he turned to me, his jab about my scribbling was meant to sting, but I was beyond his reach. I stood, the envelope in my hand, and watched his world unravel as he read the truth. The acquisition wasn't just a business move. It was a reclamation of my power, a statement that I was no longer invisible. As I drove away, the weight of my past fell away. I pictured Gregory at the table, his hands shaking, Owen and Finn grappling with the news. They'd never seen me as a threat, but now I held their future in my hands. The publishing house, Gregory's pride and joy, was mine, and with it, the power to reshape his legacy. Back at the house, the fallout was seismic. Gregory's voice trembled as he explained the document to his sons. Owen's anger flared, his sense of entitlement crumbling. Finn's confidence faltered, his world no longer certain. They'd relied on Gregory's strength, but now he was powerless, his empire in the hands of the daughter he'd dismissed. My childhood was a tapestry of small rejections, each one weaving a thread of doubt into my heart. The Kellan house, with its sprawling gardens and ivy-covered walls, was a stage for Gregory's favoritism. I remember summer evenings on the porch, Owen and Finn sprawled across the wicker furniture, swapping stories while Gregory listened, his eyes alight with pride. I'd sit on the steps, my sketchbook open, hoping for a glance. It never came. At 12, I built a model printing press for a science fair, a clunky but functional machine that earned first place. I invited Gregory to the showcase, my voice trembling with excitement. He promised to come but went to Owen's debate instead, later claiming he'd forgotten. My ribbon hung on my bedroom wall, a silent trophy of my solitude. Sylvia tried to fill the gap. She'd sit with me at night, reading my stories and praising my imagination. "You have a gift," she'd say, her voice soft but firm. But her encouragement couldn't erase the sting of Gregory's neglect. I began to hide my achievements, tucking certificates into drawers and keeping contest wins to myself. It was easier than facing his indifference. High school was a turning point. I discovered coding, a language where I could create worlds without needing anyone's approval. I spent hours in the school computer lab, building apps and websites that solved small problems, a library tracker, a story-sharing forum. Each project was a rebellion against Gregory's dismissal, a way to prove I was more than the dreamer he mocked. College was where my vision took shape. I majored in computer science and literature, a blend that baffled my advisors but felt right to me. I wrote papers on digital publishing, arguing that technology could democratize storytelling. My professors encouraged me, but Gregory scoffed when I mentioned my studies. "Books are dying," he'd say, oblivious to the irony of his own career. I worked 3 jobs, library assistant, freelance editor, campus tech support, to fund my projects. I lived in a cramped dorm, my desk buried under notebooks and laptops. Late at night, when the campus was quiet, I'd code, building the first version of my platform. It was a simple database at first, connecting student writers with local publishers. But I saw its potential, a way to give voices like mine a chance to shine. Rejections were constant. Publishers ignored my pitches, investors laughed at my inexperience, and mentors advised me to aim smaller. But each no was fuel. I refined the platform, adding features like user profiles and analytics. By my senior year, I had a working prototype and a small but loyal user base. I graduated with honors, but Gregory didn't attend the ceremony. He was at Finn's album release party. Post-college, I moved to Seattle, a city pulsing with tech and creativity. My apartment was a shoebox, its walls bare except for a whiteboard covered in platform ideas. I lived frugally, saving every dollar for my startup. Freelance editing kept me afloat, but the platform was my obsession. I spent nights debugging code, days pitching to publishers, and weekends studying market trends. The breakthrough came when a small press adopted my platform, reporting a 30% increase in manuscript quality. Word spread, and soon larger publishers signed on. A tech conference invitation followed, where I presented to a room of skeptical investors. A woman who'd fought her own battles in tech, saw my vision. Her investment gave me the capital to hire a team, 5 coders and writers, all hungry to prove themselves. We worked out of a shared office, a chaotic space filled with coffee cups and whiteboards. My team was my family, their belief in me a balm for years of neglect. We launched version 2 of the platform, adding AI to match writers with publishers and a reader app that went viral. Downloads soared, and the literary world took notice. I was invited to speak at festivals, my name appearing in articles beside words like innovator and visionary. But I kept my success quiet. I didn't post on social media, didn't send family emails, didn't attend reunions. Gregory's world revolved around Owen and Finn, and I let him believe I was still the girl who faded into the background. It was a strategic silence, a way to ensure my triumph would hit with maximum impact. The harvest feast was a Kellan tradition, a night of excess and ego. I hadn't been home in 2 years, my absence unremarked by my family. But I chose this night to return, knowing it would be the stage for my reckoning. The sports car was a deliberate choice, its sleek lines a symbol of my independence. The envelope, with its crisp legal document, was my weapon, forged in years of silent ambition. The house was unchanged, its grandeur a mask for the dysfunction within. Sylvia greeted me with a hesitant hug, her eyes searching for the girl she'd once known. Owen and Finn barely acknowledged me, their focus on Gregory's approval. Dinner was a parade of their achievements, each boast a reminder of my place, or lack thereof. Gregory's jab about my scribbling was the final straw. I'd spent years swallowing his barbs, but this time, I was ready. The envelope landed on the table with a soft thud, its weight far greater than its size. As Gregory read, the room stilled, the air thick with dread. The document was clear. My company, Beacon Press, had acquired Kellan Publishing, Gregory's lifeline for 30 years. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. The car's engine roared as I drove away, the sound drowning out Gregory's shout. I knew what was happening behind me. Owen's rage, Finn's disbelief, Sylvia's quiet shock. They'd never seen me as a contender, but now I held their world in my hands. Back at the house, the dining room was a battlefield. Gregory's hands shook as he reread the document, his voice barely audible. "She owns it," he repeated, as if saying it would undo the truth. Owen slammed his fist on the table, his face a mask of fury. "How could she? We're the ones who built this family." Finn paced, his confidence shattered. "She was nothing. How did she do this?" Sylvia sat silently, her eyes distant. She'd seen my pain, but even she hadn't known my strength. Gregory's empire, built on his son's egos and my exclusion, was now mine. The publishing house, his pride and joy, answered to me. Every decision, every contract, every legacy, mine to shape. For me, it wasn't about revenge. It was about liberation. I'd spent years chasing a love that would never come, shrinking to fit a family that didn't want me. Now, I stood tall, my life a testament to my resilience. The platform wasn't just a business, it was a beacon for those who'd been overlooked, a promise that talent could rise above neglect. Seattle welcomed me back with open skies, the city's pulse matching my own. My office buzzed with activity, my team pushing the platform to new heights. We launched a global expansion, partnering with publishers in Europe and Asia. My name became synonymous with innovation, but I remained grounded, driven by the girl who'd once believed she was nothing. The Kellan family scrambled in my wake. Owen called, his voice a mix of anger and desperation, asking for a meeting. Finn sent a text, awkwardly congratulating me. Gregory remained silent, his pride too wounded to reach out. Sylvia wrote a letter, her words a mix of apology and awe. I didn't respond. Their world was no longer mine. I bought a house on Puget Sound, its windows framing the stars I'd once studied. Each night, I stood on the deck, the water reflecting my reflection, a woman who'd fought for her place and won. The pain of my past was a distant ache, replaced by the freedom of being seen, not by my family, but by myself. The harvest feast was a turning point, not just for me, but for the Kellan legacy. Gregory's empire was mine to redefine, and I would do so with the fairness he'd never shown. My platform would lift others, giving voice to the voiceless, just as I'd found mine. The road ahead was mine, paved with the strength I'd forged in silence. I was Nora Kellan, the unseen beacon, and my light would never dim. Did Nora's journey from the shadows to the spotlight move you? Her triumph over neglect and her rise to power are just the beginning of the stories we share. Drop a comment below. Tell us what moment hit you hardest or how you'd rewrite the Kellan family's next chapter. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of dreamers and storytellers, and don't forget to like this tale to help others discover Nora's beacon. Your support fuels more stories of courage and redemption, so let's keep the light burning together.